Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 42 for March 24th, 2017. Hey everybody, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, where we go over all the big news this week with Microsoft, as well as share our thoughts, opinions on what's happening in the Windows 10 world, and also talk about all sorts of cool things related to technology. How are you doing this day, Zach?
Not too bad. How are you?
Hanging in there. It is a nice, cold, and blustery day here in the Northeast. This week, we will be talking about Windows 10 RTM for the Creators Update, which we expect in April. We'll also talk about Skype and how it is finally out of preview. Microsoft services down. We had a big outage this week. Luckily, it was only a few hours, but it was pretty devastating if you were trying to use anything related to Microsoft at that moment. We'll talk about some new job listings for Microsoft, including Windows 10 mobile jobs, our Redstone 3 wish list, and Windows 10 mobile push to 8.1 devices, which is Zach's article that he just published today. Let's jump into it. We are nearing the release date here for the Creators Update, finally. What can you tell us about that? And are we using the Creators Update right now, Zach?
So, Microsoft released another Insider Preview build this week on Monday. It was an interesting release. It was a late one, I believe, for America time, and especially late for somebody in the UK like me. I think it came out at like 2 in the morning. But it was build 15063, and this is the build we believe to be the, air quotes, RTM of the Windows 10 Creators Update. Now, for those who don't know, the RTM stands for Release to Manufacturing, and in short, that basically means this is the build that Microsoft will give to hardware makers to preload onto new devices shipping with Redstone 2. So this is basically the final build of the Creators Update. Now, that doesn't mean if there's any bugs in the Creators Update, they're stuck there until Redstone 3. Microsoft will continue destroying bugs with patches up until release and even after release. So the rumor was April 11th for the release dates. Microsoft hasn't announced anything regarding that yet, but the patches we should expect to see start showing up next week for, I assume, PC and mobile, and especially for mobile, because I know there's some issues with the mobile builds and them upgrading and receiving blue screens. A few people did report that. I think Microsoft know the issue, or at least they're investigating it, and should be mended before the Creators Update goes out officially. Now, I don't expect the Creators Update to roll out at the same time as the desktop one does, because that's never happened, and it just makes more sense for Microsoft to focus on each individual platform one at a time with its rollout. So desktop will likely come first. They will receive a day one patch whenever the Creators Update is released. Insiders will test those patches up until release date, and then we should be good to go. And then Redstone 3 builds, which should be late April. Right now, we really don't know what's coming in Redstone 3, apart from probably my people, since it was already announced and delayed for Redstone 2. We'll be talking more about what we want to see in Redstone 3 later in the show. But that's basically it. RTM, the final build. Microsoft doesn't like saying RTM anymore, so we like to refer to it as...
But they do. They do call it RTM internally.
RTM. Yeah, I think the engineers are encouraged to not use the phrase RTM internally, but a lot of the people who have to speak to partners and stuff still to use the terms RTM, because it's just what they know. It's just the term that's been around for so long.
And plus, it literally does get released to manufacturers, which is what RTM stands for. There is a bill that goes to them so they can start working on it, because although it's always a few months behind, it's pretty weird that when devices actually start shipping with the latest version. I'm always curious when I get a new laptop and I turn it on to see what version it was flashed with. It's never the latest version, but it's neither like, you know, the earliest build in the 14s or whatever. So
yeah, I think Microsoft has a system in place now that if you end up running a pre-release build of Windows 10, it does automatically put you on an insider ring, even if you're not signed in. I think that's what happens. So if you do have a machine that you boot up, it just automatically finds the latest build and stuff, which is pretty helpful.
Right, yeah, there's still a lot of patches that still need to be updated. But overall, this latest build, what are we on now? 15063?
Yes.
Is that the current build?
That's right.
So that matches for PC as well as mobile on fast ring, although the slow ring is also now on 15063, which is one of those weird alignment issues where when that happens, you see slow and fast line up like that. That's a good sign that that's probably going to be that final release build. It doesn't necessarily absolutely mean it. They can have some show-stopping bugs, but it means they start to feel pretty confident that that is an appropriate release. As Zach said, though, there can be a lot of patches coming out just at the last minute. I know in the past they've actually released patches that day as it starts to go out. We should also mention that just because this update, once it goes live for the public, not all devices will get it. Like, don't expect necessarily to turn on your PC that morning and get the update. It's going to roll out in waves. It may even be slower than the last time. Now, there are ways to force it and make it happen, quickly. And we'll, of course, cover that when on whatever the release date is. But yeah, that's always just remember, keep that in mind. Surface devices will probably get it the first day at least.
Yeah, I reckon Microsoft first-party devices and a select amount of Redstone 1 devices, and then obviously roll out over time to everybody else. I mean, even today, there are still some people who were on the original Windows 10 release. I have no idea what they're doing, but they're still there and not using the newest version. So there will always be somebody.
There's always that group of people that lament the Windows as a service. They hate getting updates. They don't trust anything about Microsoft, which I'm one of those people. Like, if you have privacy issues and are skeptical of all the stuff that happens in Windows 10, you probably shouldn't be using Windows 10. And you should probably just go build your own Linux build and, be happy with that. But this is the world we live in. It's I think most consumers are pretty happy with getting these updates, but we'll have to kind of see how they are trying to keep. I know Microsoft says they're trying to keep updates to once a month. That you have to, in other words, where you have to actually restart your PC because of an update. I don't think once a month is asking too much for people to restart their computer. People may vary on this, but that seems like a pretty fair thing considering how people live with smartphones and are kind of used to that model.
Speaking of things that are no longer in preview states, Skype, the universal Windows platform app that we have spoken about many times on this podcast, has left preview according to its own app. It's no longer called Skype Preview, it's just called Skype. And Microsoft, I don't think, have announced this yet. It's just it rolled out as an update. And I think it's a terrible decision that they've made here. Skype Universal is not ready to be out of preview.
I kind of disagree with this.
How can you disagree? It's just bad all around.
I don't think so. I think there's first of all, there's a difference between some power user people who are the real techies seem to have issues with it versus just regular people who just turn it on to make a phone call. I honestly, my day-to-day usage, I have zero problems with it. And I'm someone who has 10 devices that are active. I don't know. It seems to work. I can understand the SMS stuff is still a little bit hokey. There's a thing with, but part of it's, I have stuff on fast ring, sometimes just different builds for Skype on fast ring, they get them a little bit early versus the production, and getting all those to talk together. So if my PC is on production with Skype versus the fast ring, but for the most part, I don't know. I really like the way Skype actually works. I really don't have too much problems with it.
I'll tell you why I have issues with it. For one, it's not a great looking app. Its UI is far from finished, and from what the concepts were that when Microsoft originally announced Skype Preview of the Skype Universal app compared to what they are today, it's nowhere near ready to be out of preview if that's what they consider done. Secondly, is another reason.
What's wrong with the UI?
The UI it's very rough. It looks rough. It's hard to explain.
I was going to say that because that's extremely subjective.
It's very rough looking
I'm the first person, I'm one of those people who, I don't know why something maybe doesn't look right. I just know it doesn't look right.
Right,
but I don't
this
mind.
Is me right now.
I don't mind the way Skype looks.
Yeah, so you would say that the Skype UI is done?
I don't know. I'm saying it doesn't bother me.
That's different.
And yet I can say what does bother me is Skype on iOS. I don't like that UI. I don't like the way Skype looks like on Android either. I can say when I use those, that actually bothers me. I can't point my finger at why it bothers me, but I like the way Skype looks way better on Windows 10 Mobile and Windows 10 for PC. So
I also dislike the Skype Universal app's reliability. Today, for example, I was just happily using my Windows phone. I'm reusing the SMS relay stuff to see if it's better. And I will admit it is a bit better. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I was using my phone innocently, as you do. I wasn't even using the Skype app. I was just opening whatever app I was using, Twitter probably. Then I receive a notification. Skype has signed out. Skype needs your attention to sign back in. Why has it signed out? It doesn't say. It doesn't care. I have to sign back in. Then I realize as it signed me out, it also kicked off all of my SMS relay devices. So I have my PC here, I have my laptop and something else set up for SMS relay. It kicked all of them off it, so they were no longer connected to my phone for SMS relay, because you have to enable SMS relay, then you have to type the code in on the other devices for it to work. It kicked all of them off. It completely forgot they existed. I had to re-enable the SMS syncing and stuff. It copied a lot. This is another thing that they have done well and fixed. Before there was always like 2 conversations and 2 contacts with everybody. They have now merged them, which is one of the good things. But when it kicked me off the Skype, when it signed me out, it also switched that and broke it. So the conversations came back and they wouldn't go away for like 20 minutes and they just then disappeared. There's things like this that really annoy me.
Okay, so I mean, there are like obviously some issues with some of that stuff, and the Skype SMS stuff is definitely a complex thing. I haven't experienced that problem. That was like something that happened to everybody. I would say it's an issue, but I mean, clearly that seems to be unique. I just want to remark, someone in comments, Roth says, Skype ain't what it used to be. It got ruined once Microsoft bought it, and he basically says it was awesome in 2003. I have to take issue with this. First of all, technology was ridiculously stupid simple in 2003. Like Skype, for instance, barely existed on mobile. There was just no mobile at that time. So Skype worked on a very different system. It was actually the peer node system, and it basically assumed you're on a PC with infinite internet, infinite power. Who cares about managing anything? And that's why it might have seemed better. But things got way more complicated once we started mixing in accounts, like, for instance, Microsoft account versus live account versus Facebook and logging in and how you do that. You can obviously do conference calls now, conference video calls. The video streaming is much more complicated now, and especially in the way it adjusts dynamically according to your network. The big thing that caused Skype problems was when they had to switch the back end for a new world where people were like, we want Skype but mobile. Like Skype was not built to be mobile. So they had to change the entire back end for that. To make it more complicated, Skype's engineers built each app completely different, which sounds nice. It's like, in other words, they tailor the app specifically for that platform, and they use whatever they can. And that gave a good experience, but that makes things complicated when all of a sudden you need to change the back end and all your apps are all over the place. And so what Microsoft's been doing for the last few years is, one, swapping out the back end, which I've always made an analogy that it's like you have a house built and you're like, all right, let's change the foundation. It's like it can be done. That's not something you're going to do and while you're living in it and still be happy with the experience. 2, they had to get all their apps aligned so that when a feature rolls out on, say, Android, they can also push it to iOS and Windows 10 Mobile. Not necessarily same day, but obviously within like the same month. And for the most part, we do see that. There are still some differences, obviously, with Windows 10 Mobile versus iOS in terms of features. But I always find when people say technology was way better back 10 years ago, whatever, hilarious, because humans are completely flawed for memory. Everything was better back in the day. This is why conservatism exists, because you always remember things better. Your mind actually actively forgets how bad things were. I can guarantee you, though, we can go back 5 years into Skype and go into comments in an article, and you're going to find nothing but people complaining about it. Like literally every technology was no one loves technology. Everything is complained about at that time. It's only years later where you have reminiscence. I think the Trio was awesome. I loved the Trio. Back when I used the Trio, though, now that I think about it, apps used to just randomly close out and there were all sorts of issues. People were patching the files that you had to go then download yourself and install on the phone. People were patching the operating system, Garnet, it was actually a mess to use. And there was no way you could have recommended that to a normal human being and be like, go use this, So, no. This is the issue I have. But I think Skype for regular people, I don't know. I still think it's okay. It definitely needs improvements, but I mean,
You are absolutely right. That for normal people, Skype does the job. The universal app itself does the job, I feel. I don't think many people are taking advantage of what the Skype desktop app has to offer anyway if you're a normal person just using it to make video calls, which is what a lot of, air quotes, normal people do. They just make video calls or even use it to send messages or silly things to each other.
I mean, appreciate how, like, think of how Skype desktop works. It's kind of annoying. First of all, it would hop into your auto startup system, right? And then run in the taskbar. And the thing, your computer would be booting, and all of a sudden that Skype screen would come up and it'd go, whoop, like it was like AOL logging into the system, and you had to wait for it, and then everything would populate. Now, think of how the UWP app, operates. You just launch. It's instant. Comes on and just goes updates the conversations. Like, it's a way different experience than signing on to how the old system works. So I don't know. I find the desktop app still is. I mean, once it's up and running is pretty good, obviously. But I like the UWP app. I just think it looks fantastic.
The Skype Universal app does get things right. For example, the integration into Windows. I like how it's not a thing that has to run at startup. It's just a service in the background that you launch and it updates all the conversations and stuff. I do like that. I also like the improvements they've made to the SMS relay. Before it was an unreliable mess. Now it basically works 99% of the time. Another good, obviously, improvement they've made there. Obviously, the contacts and weirdness between the phone address book and the app itself have now been mended as well, which they actually make note of in the what's new thing. They say, oh, the contacts work better now. Great. Then there's just the smaller issues that add up that make me just hate the app more than anything in the world. Like, I have a lot of people complain about Skype in different areas. Some people hate the desktop app. Some people love it. Other people hate the universal app. Some people love it. It just depends on how it's getting to you and these features you use. Because if you don't use SMS Relay or never used SMS Relay and you only use the Skype preview to send a few messages and make a phone call every now and then the universal app has never been bad to you.
Right.
But if
the SMS Relay app, the problem, the issue with the SMS Relay is both in its consistency and how it works, which, I think they probably know that. That's obviously, SMS Relay is not one of those features that's like, it's done. and they're never going to touch it again, right? This is going to be a project that they're going to work on and always improve. The other problem I would say is that the SMS app messaging on Windows 10 Mobile is so fast that it's hard for the Skype app to kind of catch up to that. So there's that like sort of performance difference. It's like if you're in and out of messaging all day, the Skype app's going to feel slow. And that's a problem that will be worked out through software. I think they will improve that as time goes on. The other thing that's going to happen, of course, is we're going to see, and this is, not the ideal solution, but we're going to see better hardware come out. There's something about Windows 10 Mobile, as nice as some of the features are, it is I don't want to say a heavier OS, but it doesn't run as smooth as Windows Phone 8.1 did on like really low-end hardware. And that was the real cool thing about Windows CE, and it was able to run on just really low end hardware but fast and fluid. That was, if you remember, Windows Phone's like original thing compared to Android. Now Windows 10 Mobile is not nearly as good like that. It definitely is a slower beast compared to Windows Phone. Now some people hate that. I totally get the complaint. It's a legitimate complaint, and it's definitely worth pointing out when comparing the two. However, I would say there are reasons for that, which is Windows 10 Mobile is infinitely more powerful than what Windows Phone was, which is why they made that jump in the first place. What they can do now with Windows 10 Mobile, as we're going to see with C Shell going in the future, and now Windows 10 on ARM, they can just do so much more with it, and it's that was always the problem with the original Windows Phone 7, back when it was on the CE platform before it went to one core. They just couldn't do the stuff that iOS and Android were doing because those systems were built on brand new foundations as opposed to recycling old ones. So these aren't, easy problems. They are frustrations. They're definitely worth, I don't want to gloss over these. People should complain. They should use the feedback app. They should definitely log it with the Skype people. But I think we need to keep things in perspective too. I think, this is how another thing I noticed on some of my PCs, like brand new ones, when I get them, they come preloaded with Skype, and they come with like the Skype preview, and it's the old version.
Oh, really?
And when you see that, like you really appreciate what they've done in the last year, because that version looks so gross. And this was like before they got dark mode, and if you look at that, and you can go back in our screenshots, stuff like that, just look how it looked compared to it now. They've made a lot of improvements. The issue is Skype gets updated like every week, every 2 weeks or something like that, and they do so many subtle UI changes that we don't document them all. And unless you're running side by side before and after the updates, you don't kind of appreciate the granularity of the changes. So it makes it harder. You just get used to it.
But I think as well, at least on desktop, Skype will improve with My People, because My People integration will likely be through Skype and Office and whatnot. And if you're using SMS Relay, that will become a whole lot more convenient to you, because instead of having to use the preview app or the universal app itself, you can just go through the integration on the taskbar, which would be great. And then you don't even have to deal with the ugliness of the universal app. And hopefully Microsoft build a nice UI for the integration for My People. Then that kind of gets around the speed issue on desktop, at least, where it's just there anyway, so you just go there and it's quicker. But on mobile, I worry, because I'm using SMS more on mobile than I am through SMS Relay. And the app, like you say, it takes... Somebody said to me on Twitter, I don't see what the problem is. The messaging app takes 3 seconds, the Skype preview takes 7 seconds. It's not that different. 7 seconds is a long time.
Sure. Yeah,
it's a long time to wait. 3 seconds in itself is quite a while, but if you're expecting... Because Microsoft does this. When you launch the Skype app for the first time, it actually asks you to replace the messaging app. It says, hey, we can do all the SMS stuff for you. If you're asking people to do that, at the very least, it shouldn't be slower. It should at least be the same level of speed when it launches. At least,
right.
Maybe they could make some code optimization so that if you're launching into an SMS message, they only load the stuff needed to send the SMS message. That might make it faster, I don't know. But right now, it's definitely slower, and something even I noticed on the Elite extent.
And if you compare it to the gold standard, which is Apple, and how they do their, I forgot what their messaging, the FaceTime system.
iMessage.
Yeah, iMessage. Compare, that's sort of like, because there it's totally seamless. Having said that, I've seen a lot of people complain about that stuff not working, syncing to desktop either, and having lots of issues going back and forth. So not everything is perfect, but I would say the raw performance Apple has kind of nailed. And Apple's always been good at that. It's the same reason why people ask me, would you use iOS or Android? I always say iOS, because iOS, the way they've optimized their apps, it's so consistent in performance that you never know as a stutter or slowdown or anything kind of weird. Where I turned on my Galaxy S7 the other day, finally got Nougat updated to it, and I honestly I couldn't force myself to get back into it. I don't know why, because I did use the Galaxy S6 Edge for a few months, actually. I was actually kind of using it pretty regularly, and I felt like I was okay with it. But now, for some reason, I just find it painful, and I don't know why that is. But there's definitely work there that needs to be done. And someone pointed out, no normal person would use the Skype as SMS, because of those performance differences. But I had to tell you, I do miss sometimes. I'm at my PC, a text message comes in, and I'm like, I really do wish I could just open up my Skype app and respond to it, because I love using a keyboard, a real keyboard, versus picking up my phone and typing on the screen. But I sometimes don't enable that stuff because of the performance differences. So it does, prevent me from using it, but, they'll get there, hopefully. But there's still work that needs to be done, that's for sure.
Speaking of things that don't work, Microsoft services this week went down again. This was the second time in 2 weeks. I think they went down last week as well. But Microsoft are basically showing the world why an all-cloud future is a bad idea. Because last week it went down, and basically what it did is it locked everybody out of their Microsoft accounts. If you weren't already logged in, you couldn't log in. So if you were logged in, you were fine. But there was like a barrier for people who was trying to authenticate new devices and stuff. Wouldn't let you in. Couldn't log into Xbox, couldn't log into Outlook and whatnot. This week, the same thing happened, except it took out more things. It took out Windows activation. It took out Outlook email entirely. It took out a few more things, and it lasted a couple hours at least, as far as I can remember. And it's weird because a few weeks ago, I think Amazon had an issue with their services, and that took down a lot of the internet. Like a lot of websites such as Twitter and whatever else, they actually use Amazon's servers for some of their stuff. And when Amazon servers went down, a lot of their services went down, such as Twitter and whatnot. So I'm guessing this was an Azure issue with Microsoft. Maybe it was something else that they use privately for their own services, whatever. A lot of Microsoft stuff went down, and a lot of people were frustrated. And my girlfriend texted me. She went, "What's the issue with Outlook right now?" And I just went, "Yeah, it's down." She went, "Yeah, I can see that." And she was expecting me to know more. I was like, I don't know. I don't know everything. But yeah, it's just not great. It's not great.
Yeah, there's a reason why they do cloud. All these companies do, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, whether it's Amazon. This is how you get more powerful, efficient computing, and this is just a response to the market. People want to do more stuff. Skype itself is now on the cloud. That's how it does all its syncing and stuff like that. The only reason you can have Skype signed into all your, you think about it, like you could pick up, I got like 5 phones in front of me right now and a couple of computers. They're all quote unquote signed into Skype, and yet I can get calls to either of those, and they don't need to be signed in. If you remember, Skype used to actually have a limit with how many devices, and there probably is still, but how many devices that can be actually active. All this is driven by the cloud, or the idea of like roaming profiles. Like when you log into an app, it syncs up your settings. We all want to use things like Tweet Marker and stuff like that. All of this stuff is because of the market, demands it. And so it's not like, I don't know what the solution here is outside of that. Cloud computing is still new. All of these companies are investing heavily in it. They'll figure out stuff. Every time there's an outage, I'm sure they're learning from their mistakes. And, it'll get better. But sure, when you put your stuff out there on the internet, this is the issue with the Internet of Things. People's thermostats have gone offline before and couldn't operate. So this is, this is the trade-off for having an all-connected world. I think one of the funniest things about consumers is they want everything. And they want privacy, but then they also want convenience. And it's like, those are hard to balance, especially since people, that's the joke, right? With Facebook, it's like when companies take their info, no one likes it, but then people go and post everything about themselves on Facebook openly. And so it's sort of like, it's a weird thing that people are, I still blows my mind, a controversial topic, people sexting, like no one wants no one wants their picture taken naked, right? But then when people have the choice to do it themselves, they do it. It's like, why would you do that and expect it, I don't know. There's definitely a lot of issues there with that stuff. So this is the crazy world we live in right now. It's unfortunate, but I mean, how long was that stuff down for? Just a couple hours, right?
Couple hours. But it was at a crucial time for me because I was reinstalling Windows and everything. And it was like, oh, nothing's activated. I can't download apps. What a waste of my time. But it makes you think, because think about the Windows 10 cloud stuff that's up and coming. And that stuff basically relies on the Windows Store. And the Windows Store was down for that small amount of time.
Well,
but
so
imagine
Chrome OS, right?
If this was Christmas Day and you just received a new laptop. Yeah, this is my new laptop. It's time to set it up. Oh, I can't log in. I can't do anything with it because it's down.
And I was going to say, probably the bigger thing is with something like Xbox, where people you can't even run Netflix. You can't run certain games. That's frustrating. I agree 100% there. That's something I think it really does need to be addressed or, mitigated somehow. I think we can accept some things, they go down and it's out for a while. You can't use it. But like if you have an Xbox and you turn it on and you're like, I bought this game, I should be able to just play this game. And it's a problem with DRM. I remember when our videographer, Mark Wim, was, he went to the Philippines for a couple of weeks and then he tried to play some video games on his laptop. And I think it was with EA, they had to do server checks to verify the game and he couldn't get online because the Philippines, the connections aren't strong. And he basically couldn't game. And that's a kind of crappy experience when you compare it to like owning like a console, like a Game Boy or something that you just put a cartridge in and, there we go. These things I think need to get sorted. I find it frustrating. I hate running Steam. I've always gone off about that, having this thing that needs to run and check and, but then piracy is a real problem, so it's like, what do you do when people are constantly stealing and cracking things and figuring out ways to patch stuff? Years ago, you needed to have the CD in the PC to actually run the game. And what did people do? They just came up with cracks that basically prevented the CD check and got around that. And now that, and then the market said, well, we don't even want CDs anymore. So, they had to come up with other means. So it's unfortunate, but these things are going to happen. I think happened with Amazon too, and what was worth about Amazon was it wasn't like their services, right? It was
a lot of
all these companies that relied on Amazon. So
I think it's less of an issue that we'd have to accept if we're moving into a cloud future that at some point these cloud services will go down. I think what we need to focus on is how we can get them back up and running as fast as possible. Like an outage is going to happen. Can we get it back up in less than a minute?
Someone points out, it's like electricity. Electricity goes out too, and you can't use your stuff. It's like, this happens in the U.S. with our aging infrastructure here during the summertime. If it's a really, really hot day, they have rolling brownouts, they call them, where the electricity goes out for a couple hours. I've experienced it myself.
Really? That's never happened here. It's too cold here.
Yeah.
That's why.
This is because in the U.S. we would rather spend all our money on defense instead of electricity. Yeah. So, but this is all services. That's why they're called a service. Services aren't 100% uptime. They aim for that, but I think it's also the world we live in where people can't be inconvenienced at all anymore for anything.
Would you say 2 hours is too long for a service outage?
I don't think so.
Would you say that in 10 years?
I don't know. I mean, it depends. The service outage this time was because it affected so many different things. But 2 hours, it affects companies, who are trying to do business. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, it's like,
because I'd say right now, a lot of the cloud services Microsoft offers are they're more like, they're not something that you rely on. Like email might be the most important thing that went down on that day.
I mean, Gmail's gone down in the past. Do you remember Twitter used to go down all the time? The Twitter whale thing would show up. Yeah, but that's not
essential. I don't think Twitter is essential. I think email might be the most essential thing, but even then, I don't consider email to be that essential.
I think email years ago was essential. I think email now is like nuisance. It's like in voicemail.
In the future, where Microsoft has a version of Windows that you have to sign into when you log into it, and it authenticates itself with the cloud, so it gives you all of your personalizations and whatnot. What then when Microsoft services are down for 2 hours and you can't log into your device? That's when things become a little bit more, now this is a problem. This is a real problem that we need to deal with, which is why I say the issue shouldn't be if it will go down. It should be how quickly can we get it back up? That should be the thing we're focusing on. It should also be
backups, or, there should be a way if you can't log in, it allows a couple of hours to be in that state, Don't forget, Windows right now, you don't need to register it, right? You can run Windows without a registration key basically forever. And you just can't, you can't go to dark mode and customize the background. Though you can customize the background because you can have it sync from another PC, which is hilarious.
With the Creators Update, it syncs your dark mode, light mode preference as well. So you can technically have dark mode on an unactivated machine.
Yeah, so all this stuff is a workaround. But I guarantee these are things that these companies are working to solve, and it's again not easy. But when that happened, I was kind of laughing because, and I admit, I'm not a hospital, I'm not doing anything intensive, so I was just okay, so it's down for a while. I remember I remember everything going down. I remember Netflix going down before. I remember Gmail being down. Slack goes down all the time. And it's not even all the time. It's just that one time when it does, it's I need it now. It's no doubt it's frustrating, but I think people just need to relax a little bit too. But we're in this world where it's super hyperactive, and people need everything connected all the time. These companies are going there; they're meeting it. Don't forget. That's how going back to Skype again. Skype is on every device out there. It's always connected 24/7, and that's not. How do you think that's being done? Without killing your battery, mind you. Skype. I remember running Skype on Windows Mobile 6, and you couldn't leave it actually running in the background because it had a constant data connection. It was draining your battery. You could only use it when you needed to make the call, which was not really convenient. But now you can leave Skype running all the time, and it literally has zero effect on your battery. That's pretty awesome, actually.
Should we move on to our next story?
Oh, sure.
Job listings. Microsoft are hiring. You can apply now.
2 people, apparently.
3, I think it was. The reason this is a significant story this week is because these job listings are specific to Windows Mobile, which everybody thought was dead and no one cared about. Turns out Microsoft actually want people to help. I need to get the story up, but they basically were like, hey, would you like to help build an awesome platform with Windows Mobile? We're doing all this cool stuff and you could be part of that team. Basically, what these job listings have done is given the remaining Windows Phone fans a little bit of hope as to Microsoft actually caring about Windows Mobile. And keep in mind, it does reference Windows Mobile and not Windows 10 Mobile. Now, Windows Mobile could be a whole other thing. It could be Windows 10 on ARM. It could be Windows IoT on different kinds of devices. It could be HoloLens, for example. But
traditionally, Windows Mobile has meant Windows 10 Mobile.
No, you're right.
But all of these terms have always been interchangeable with Windows Phone with a capital P, Windows Phone with a small p, Windows Mobile. So, yeah, it's all kind of complicated stuff.
So yeah, the job listing says, in a mobile-first, cloud-first world, Windows Mobile remains an important and strategic piece for Microsoft. We are uniquely positioned to support our enterprise customers, OEMs, and mobile partners who continue to invest in our platform and the consumers who are adapting connectivity scenarios like Continuum. An agile and nimble organization is being created in the Windows and Devices group to support this charter and deliver on security, manageability features and enterprise and consumers, and be part of the cutting-edge long-term investments in mobile. So interestingly, it says enterprises and consumers there, although most of this is an enterprise sort of focus, they say.
Well, yeah, and that gets into the days of BlackBerry when they were creating new technology too. It was always sort of more business and enterprisey. But what ended up happening were first drug dealers came along and said, we can use that too. And then everybody was like, I want to be a cool drug dealer. and then it trickled down to just like regular people wanted it. And so that's how all this technology works is even like HoloLens right now is mostly geared, what do they say? We're not going to make this consumer facing at first. We're pushing it towards enterprise and professional clients. But clearly, there's a push that will come for consumers as soon as the technology becomes more developed and becomes cheaper. And that's probably one of the most interesting things about modern technology. Even the thing like with the internet itself started off as a connection system between military institutions and educational institutions to survive a nuclear blast. That was the idea, that you can have these communications underground between computers. And then eventually they started selling it off to the consumer market with private companies who continue to develop it. That's where CompuServe and AOL came from. But that was, what was a military industrial technology became, standard, consumer thing around the world. And that's how all advanced technology actually happens, is it starts off in this like sort of enterprise business space. Continuum, we always argue, it's like, do consumers really need that? Well, no, in its current form, definitely a hard argument to make, and it makes a little bit more sense in some enterprise and business environments. But as this technology becomes, if I can tell you in the future, you can have a phone in your pocket that's, as fast as like your PC, and you can just like easily throw it to any display and use it as a computer. Like that starts to change things a little bit. We're not there yet, but that's clearly the future that they want. But I thought it was interesting. They still mentioned consumers there. They talked about the long-term investments, with mobile. And this gets back to fundamentals. In order for UWP to really take off, to succeed, in order for Windows 10 to succeed, and in order for Microsoft to succeed, they need some sort of solution and answer in something in mobile. Like they just do. It's literally one of the biggest markets right now for computing. And they have this weird sort of half solution right there. Building apps for Android and iOS helps. They learn a lot from that, including, don't forget all the data and usage data they're collecting from users for that, about how they use those devices. But clearly, you can't say Microsoft's long-term mobile strategy is building apps for iOS and Android. That's no way a solution. So they do have to have something in that space, but we've always talked about how they're basically sitting out the smartphone part of it, and they're building what comes next. And that's where things get really murky and the story becomes less exciting.
Right. But I think what these job listings confirm for most people is that Microsoft does have some kind of vision for Windows Mobile, whether it be
Sure.
an enterprise-only focus, something that they hope consumers will adopt in the future. Whatever they have planned, they are working on something. And it's not... Because, I mean, for the longest time, it was just like, oh, yeah, Windows to mobile, it's a thing. But that's all they would say. They wouldn't ever be like, oh, yeah, long-term investments, we're working on this. We want new people on the team to be working on this, that, and the other. I think that gives people more hope that Microsoft are actually looking at things for the mobile platform. Because why would they be hiring people otherwise? They've got plenty of smart people already on the team that could maintain Windows 10 Mobile as is. But I think they want help with some new things here.
I should also mention, although we didn't cover it, though, the Surface team is also actively hiring, and it's way more than 2 people, actually. It's a lot of people at all levels, whether it's some are marketing, some are engineering, some are specific to like LTE support, which is not unusual. The Surface 3 supports LTE, so it's not necessarily a mobile thing kind of. So they are actively hiring a hardware team. I have said in the past that I have heard from sources that they laid off a lot of people from Nokia, but at the same time, they were hiring people through the Surface team. And this comes down to sometimes departments. And, don't forget, when you took the Nokia people and integrated them into the Microsoft, if you run your own department and you're just given 5,000 employees, that's a different process than going, I would not have hired those people if I had the chance. And that's not to slight the Nokia people, because I actually think they're extremely talented. But if you're running your own department, you don't necessarily want to be given, a couple hundred employees that you didn't vet or don't necessarily have the credentials that you are looking for. And that becomes a very personal thing. This happens in military especially, and this happens a lot of time in business too, where it's like, all right, I'm running my own department here. Here are the people I would like to go for. So that doesn't surprise me with the Surface team, and we'll have to see what that means long term.
I think for the mobile stuff, Mike, I might write an article about this yesterday or next week or or whatever, but I'm wondering how people would react to another Windows Phone 7 to Windows Phone 8 scenario with Windows 10 Mobile to whatever Microsoft has planned next. What if, for example, they were planning a new release of Windows 10 Mobile with, I don't know, Redstone 4 or Redstone 3 or whatever, but it wasn't coming to existing handsets. It would only be for new handsets rolling out with that specific edition of Windows 10 Mobile. How would people react to that? Would they be okay with it? Would they be upset? Would they give up then? Because it would be Microsoft still attempting mobile, but with another reset. That's what I'm wondering, if Microsoft is sort of measuring that up and how the people would react to that. How would you take that?
It's going to depend on what they actually make. If it's just another thing that looks like a smartphone, it's 5.2 inches and has a Snapdragon 835 and has a speaker on top for your earpiece. And, if it's just that, and it's like literally like another smartphone, I think it's going to, the actual people it affects will be small, but they'll be vocal, as well as the media around it will be vocal as well. But then I think some people will just be like, but we just did spend the last 2 years talking about how no one uses this thing. So right. We're going to come off as a little hypocritical, like that it matters. But if they create a device that's really kind of different, and that's what I'm really hoping that they do, it's not just something that looks like a phone, but maybe it folds, maybe it's like, I'm still hoping and pushing for is that Westworld type design. Like if that thing came out and it was truly different and did different things, I think then people would be like, oh, wait, okay, that's not really a phone anymore. I get why that isn't coming to like my old, Lumia 520. So that's what I'm hoping for. And that's what I think they would do, right? Because we talked about this before. They don't just, I still do not believe that if the Surface team comes out with a mobile device, it's just going to be a phone. Like, I find that difficult to believe that they would be, out of all the stuff they've been creating, they'd just be like, yeah, we decided we're just going to do the same thing as iOS and Android and make the same device. That's a weird thing to sell as saying, here's a new category,
See, a lot of people have an issue with the Surface Phone thing, though, because it's still so far away if it ever does come. And some people want things now. Like Jez, for example, wants a phone out this year, and so do I. I would love Microsoft to release like a sort of a placeholder phone, just like another phone for the fans that they don't market or care about, and they sell maybe 100,000, but just to keep me going, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I would like if they did that, but for Microsoft's actual push into the mobile market, they should wait for the Surface Phone. They should take their time with the Surface Phone as well. I know some people want them to release a Surface Phone now or as soon as they possibly can, but I think they should wait until they have everything that they need to paint a full picture. If they release a Surface Phone that has, the continuum we have today, and they say, oh, don't worry, in the future it'll be much better, then that's not going to paint a full picture and people will write it off immediately. They have to have everything ready before they can actually convince the public that this is something that they want.
They also don't want to blur or confuse messages. If they came out now with just like a generic phone kind of thing running Windows 10 Mobile, that's kind of weird than if 6 months, a year later, they release a Surface Phone. It's a completely different category device. It's sort of like mixed messaging. I think if they do come out with a full mobile strategy, they're going to want to actually have a consistent strategy as opposed to muddying the water. Like, yeah, we had a phone last time, but we were just doing that for, for giggles. This was the real thing, because I feel like no matter what they create next, like if now so much space is between Nokia and them, that if whatever phone that comes out, people are going to be like, oh, it's a Surface Phone, right? Because technically, whoever builds this thing is going to be technically the Surface team, because the Surface team isn't a Surface team anymore. I mean, they make Surface, but they also make all the other hardware too for Microsoft. So, whatever new phone they create is going to be kind of that. But yeah, I agree. They should kind of take their time. And the reason why, the Surface Phone thing has been hilarious because a lot of it just started as wishful thinking. Ever since Microsoft created the first Surface, people were like, oh, cool. Well, you have phones too. And phones are a big thing right now. So you're going to make a phone, right? And then it just became this almost self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, just do a phone, just do a phone. And then there were, Microsoft always experimenting with internal stuff. But don't forget, they couldn't actually really build a phone until they bought Nokia and they bought all those, the technology behind it. There's no evidence that they were hiring people to actually build a phone themselves. It became a little bit easier once they bought Nokia, and then they had all this phone ability to actually make one. That's where the rumor started ramping up again, and then they had a huge, reset strategy. So, yeah, this is going to be one of. Now I think it's been built up so much, which is hilarious because literally no one at Microsoft has built this up. It's been us, the media, hearing things. It's been a lot of it's just consumers and just connecting dots and going like, you guys have mobile, you make Surface, make a Surface Mobile. It does seem pretty obvious. But because of that, the expectation is so high, the pressure is very high. They can't just, as I've always said, put out a metal phone that says Surface on it and be like, there it is. Because all the existing complaints about Windows 10 Mobile that exist today will still exist for that phone. It'll just be on a nicer piece of hardware that no one's going to buy.
I think what we should do right now is just dampen the hype. Let's stop expecting a Surface Phone and just say Windows Phone is dead and move on with our lives. And go and buy iPhones.
I'm sure Microsoft could, and I'm curious if Microsoft how they would feel about that. Because
if we changed our message and say, well, just forget about it. Go and buy an iPhone. No, Microsoft doesn't care. If we started encouraging, do you reckon Microsoft would be like, oh, wait a minute, hang on? Or do you reckon they wouldn't care? I reckon they probably wouldn't care, actually.
I feel like they're like someone like you're dating and they want to break up with you, but they don't want to actually break up with you.
Right. Because you're right. You know how you say that the media hype sort of stuff? You are right. But then again, Microsoft could have stepped in and said, well, hang on, chill out a minute. They haven't done that. They haven't said anything on the subject. So partly
that's why I keep saying at Build. That's why they need to, at Build, come out and either say something either way,
And not half say something, properly say everything.
Right. I think the most annoying thing is we believe in the future of mobile.
Right. The most
okay, that's like saying I believe in the future of water. It's like, yeah, we know water's important. We all agree it's important. We need it. So we're asking, do you have your own water? So, yeah.
Another example of this is with when they demoed those continuum improvements last year. They never mentioned anything about foldable phones, because they never mentioned about being composable and being able to switch between modes easily. They just said, "Oh, this is some stuff we're working on. We don't know when it's coming or who it's coming for." Like that's not something you can't just show all this stuff and then not tell us what it's for or when it's coming in the bigger picture. They need to just sit down and just talk. Get Satya Nadella or whoever to look at a camera for 20 minutes and explain what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because of that continuum stuff. We've pieced that together and be like, oh, that's actually part of Seashell, and that's coming probably with Redstone 3. So we're doing the piecing together. But then again, I guess, part of it is it seemed like at the time that continuum stuff, that Seashell stuff that we later learned was actually part of Redstone 2, but like a lot of things, it got kind of kicked back. So this gets into how did they announce something without promising a due date for it, which is, a lot of these companies got a lot of trouble, whether it was, even Apple's done this and Android too, where they announce something and then they don't give a firm date on it, the joke right now, of course, with Android is Android O, and yet, was it 2.8% of devices are on Android N right now, and they just announced O, and so it sort of gets into this. It's like O will be ready by the fall, but when the heck are actual consumer devices going to get this? You're talking like so. So this is a tough problem for them. I think they have a lot of moving parts. There's going to be the hardware stuff. They got to figure out the form factor and the engineering. Then they got to figure out the OS part. Like we keep saying, we all know, like if they came out with Surface Phone, whatever your unicorn device is, right now, and you just put, Windows 10, was it 15? What number are we on? 15063? If we put that on there, like, okay, go sell 100,000 of those things. It's
not going to happen.
Yeah, like they still aren't there with the OS yet, and I know, and we keep seeing the stuff they're working on, and they have like huge plans. They're just not plans that are going to be done tomorrow or next month
and
or
stuff
next
they
year.
Won't talk about until it's too late. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's too late." By the time they'll be ready, it's too late. It's not too late. It's too late 2 years ago. It's already too late if you want to look at it like that. It's like,
and the other issue they have is Android and iOS are not, standing still, right? There was that patent this week out. Was it a patent? Did they win the patent, or they got the patent, or they applied for a patent?
Look,
because those are two different
not
things.
My thing.
Okay. Well, either Apple applied for a patent or were given a patent for a device I've described in the past, which I thought was hilarious, which is basically a Surface device where you drop in the phone, because if you look at how Continuum works right now, your phone becomes the trackpad. So it's like, okay, so why don't I make a device where the trackpad is the phone? And it's like Apple's like, oh, that's a good idea. And so either they applied for a patent or given a patent. But my point, of course, to that is, Apple could do something like this. Android could, Google could do something like this. Now we can make in fact, Samsung's Galaxy S8 is rumored to have a desktop kind of component to it where it scales up and does that. Now, we can point out that their systems are inherently flawed because they're not desktop operating systems. They lack, for all the awesomeness that Android is out there in the market, it's terrible as a tablet. It cannot get its tablet story right. And this week, I just saw a bunch of stories talking about, here's Samsung with another tablet. Who cares kind of thing, because tablets and Android have just never caught on, despite hitting like stupid low price points. It's just not a thing. So I don't know. They just better hope their partners don't get to this. Not their partners, their competition don't get to this.
I feel like Apple applied for this patent just because they didn't want Microsoft to take advantage of it. Because I don't think Apple cares about Continuum and like having your phone be a machine. They've got Mac, and they very clearly keep their Mac story separate from their iPhone story. They don't believe in touch on laptops. They think desktops and laptops are their own thing, and they do their own things. Phone is where the touch screen stuff is.
Yeah, but everybody now is speculating, and I think it's correct, that iOS is just they want iOS to supplant Mac OS.
Yeah. That would make sense.
Be their then they're like, see, we did bring touch. We just did it the other way around. But if you think about the way they view computing, it actually would make more sense. And their recent release of the MacBook Pro hardware, was kind of a middle finger to people who actually need like hardcore software and performance, you know, that they're kind of getting away from that kind of stuff. So maybe that's a sign of times for them. And people have to kind of weigh that. I've seen an iOS, the iPad Pro, and after I nearly cramped up from laughing so hard at it, because it's like, it's beautiful
huge
hardware. I'll always defend Apple's hardware as being just immaculate, but Jesus, turn that screen on. I felt like I was a 5-year-old, like point at icon and just like use my giant. I could just mash it with my thumbs, you know. Like, it was just a weird user experience because it was literally just that blown up, and I don't know.
They make no optimizations to the UI to make it more like useful at that large size. We've run out of time, so we just quickly finish off these last stories. Redstone 3 wish list. What we want to see in Redstone 3. I wrote an article this week, sort of listing what I hope to see sharp with Redstone 3 now that Redstone 2 is out the way. The first obvious one, my people, since Microsoft announced that for Redstone 2, it would be nice to see it show up in Redstone 3. I'm very excited to be able to contact people straight from the taskbar. I know not many people are excited for this. I am. I don't know why. I thought it was the biggest, most exciting feature showing up in the Creators Update until they cancelled it. I'd also like to see Project Neon start showing up system-wide with Redstone 3, because right now the only real Neon elements we're seeing are within apps, and even then it's not like full-on, whereas Microsoft has plans to sort of give it everything a lick of Neon with hopefully Redstone 3. Which, again, that's another obvious one, along with Seashell for Windows 10 Mobile, which will obviously introduce the windowed mode stuff. We're not sure if Seashell is coming to existing devices or if it'll be for new devices, but that's the thing they are working on. Landscape mode. This would likely play in conjunction with Seashell. A landscape mode on Windows 10 Mobile is a thing that many people have been asking for a long time. And hopefully with switching shells, it would make sense for Microsoft to just build it right in, right? You'd be able to just turn your phone on the side.
If they do it, they need to have a dual control. I want to be able to disable it on the start screen, but have it for other apps. Because like right now, the iPhone 7 Plus does landscape mode. And I honestly could care less about or couldn't care less. I always forget that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I hate that feature because I never want it. But I hate it because if you lock that feature, then you go to Photos, the Photos app, it doesn't do it. So it's like I want one on and I want the apps to be able to rotate, but not the start screen.
That sounds like a complicated issue that Microsoft won't care about.
Yeah, probably. They're probably like, why we just gave it to you?
Why do you want this now? God, you're so picky. Anyway, moving on to the next one. Better feature parity between mobile and desktop. Now, with the Creators Update, this is more noticeable than any previous releases, but desktop received a lot of features and mobile didn't. Things like night mode, which make more sense on phone than desktop, in my opinion. I would like to be able to, see night mode show up on mobile at the same time it did on PC. And hopefully with Redstone 3, any features that they show up with Redstone 3 on desktop, that makes sense on mobile, will show up on mobile as well at the same time rather than being delayed or whatever, which is what happened with night mode and a few other things. There are a few examples where this has happened for mobile. I think Cortana, a lot of the Cortana pick up where you left off stuff doesn't work on mobile, I don't think. Or does it? It doesn't work in the UK at all, so I can't test. But
I'm not really seeing it much on my Cortana, although I can check right now, I guess.
I don't think it works, which is really quite annoying. Floating Cortana. Now, this is a thing that was rumored to be in the works a long time ago. Floating Cortana, which would basically be a contextual Cortana that you could that would pop up on screen if you were writing a work report or something. And I would like to see that show up in Redstone 3. I actually saw concepts of Floating Cortana with the Office stuff that I wrote about a while ago with the Office Hub. And basically what that was doing is Cortana would show up. She'd give you a list of images and excerpts from text that you may have been reading up on the web, and you can just drag that straight into your document rather than having to think about it and go to the website or go through File Explorer to find what you want to insert to the document. Would be a very nice implementation. And finally, smarter notifications. Now, I don't know if anyone else has suffered from this. I suffer from it all the time. But I'll often find that the Skype app is a great example. You have the Skype app on desktop and the Skype app on phone. You get a notification coming on the desktop. It comes in on the phone as well. But if you've got notification mirroring on the phone, that notification will be sent back to the desktop. So you get two notifications on the desktop for the same app, one from the native app on the desktop and another one from the phone. With Redstone 3, I hope Microsoft sort of make smart notifications smarter in the sense that Windows sees that it's receiving the same notification back from the phone and doesn't display it. Why does it need to display it? And I know you can turn this off via Cortana already, but I would like it to be automatic with Redstone 3.
Oh, yeah, I got to look into that because I automatically turn off my mobile notifications on all my PCs.
Yeah, well, so you can turn it off, and you can turn them off by app as well. But I'd like it to be automatic. It'd make more sense as well.
Yeah, I agree. It should be able to filter those so that you just get a single notification.
Right. But that's my wish list. It's not super huge. But
yeah, since this was your idea, I haven't had much time to come up with my own wish list. But I will say, I definitely need GPS navigation to. Oh my God, it is just so bad. Like, if I could point to one reason why I sometimes would not use Windows 10 Mobile, it's because I can't use it for navigation in my car. It is just like, I get Google Maps used to be like, they used, Here Maps was pretty close to it and all this, but Google Maps now is so good, and the navigation on Windows 10 Mobile is just so awful. Like, I can't even kind of use it. It's just between sometimes, and I don't know if it's fixed. They've come out with a couple updates in the last week or two where the actual, location of you as you're driving will jump all over the place. I hate the frame rate. iOS has always had 60 frame rates per second throughout the whole OS and the display, which is why iOS feels so smooth, because the animations are like that. With navigation, I feel like I'm still navigating something from 8 years ago, where it's this car navigation where it just judders as you drive along. And that's ridiculous to have in 2017. That thing should be just smooth as anything. I also just need it to work better. I don't really like the way the Maps app looks for navigation. I find it just still a little complicated. Here Maps always had the best UI. I didn't find Here Maps necessarily to be the most accurate thing in the world. I had issues with it, but I loved visually using it. I think it looked the best. I agree with Cortana. I would like to see Cortana hook into more of Microsoft's own apps. And they're kind of doing that a little bit. Cortana recently asked me, hey, can we, monitor your music and all this kind of stuff so we can give you better recommendations? And, so I think they're kind of getting there, but I think Cortana just needs to be a little bit more useful. I don't want Cortana to be, something I go into. I want Cortana just to be there, whatever I'm using, kind of what you were mentioning before. That'd be kind of a big thing. I want them to address the lock screen. Lock screen's nice on Windows 10 Mobile, but it can be a billion times better. There's so much innovation they can do there just for giving information based off of your start screen, letting apps tie in there. They need to bring back the idea of your MSN weather being able to change the lock screen or show the full weather forecast on there. And I don't mean the detailed status. The detailed status is okay, but I want the graphic thing that they had back when they announced the Lumia, the 720, when they announced that in Germany, that was 730, that and the E30, I think it was.
I'd like the option to just have notifications display on the lock screen, because right now they hide in the notification center, and if you want to see notifications on the lock screen, you just swipe it down. But on iOS and Android, on your lock screen, if you receive a notification, it just sits on your lock screen. Now, I'm not saying this should be the default behavior, but it should be an option that you can turn on, because I actually like how Android and iOS showcase notifications on it, because it's just simple. It's there is a notification on my screen now. I can see it. I don't have to swipe anything down. I don't have to change anything. It's just there.
Yep. Yeah, they just need to, like I said, there's a lot of innovation I can go on with that thing, right? And they just haven't really done much of it. I like to see live tiles get updated a little bit. We've talked about this before. The actual paradigm, it's still good. I still prefer start tiles over anything else out there, but it's 2017. We know where they're going to an all XAML setup, which would be really nice. It'll be a little bit more dynamic and everything, but let's see some, there were years ago demonstrations of different tiles and the interactive tiles and stuff like that. They took this great idea and they just kind of went, okay, and left it. And there's been no tiles 2.0, tiles 3.0. That's traditionally how you would sort of imagine something like it happening. Now, in fairness, I look at Android, that hasn't significantly changed despite all the drawers and all this, everything shifting. Of course, iOS is completely, their big thing is like sometimes we've added a little badge. I still find those badges, by the way, on iOS infuriating. It's just a little red thing with a marker. It's always just staring at you like it's red, which is just, it makes you, it's like you need to look at this. That drives me nuts. But again, this is an area where they could beat their partners at and continue innovation. I just feel like they ran out of ideas. It's gone stale, or no one's looking at it. And that to me is weird because it's like the strength is their tiles and they have done nothing there.
You're right. They literally have done nothing since they introduced them. They haven't touched them. They basically have remained the same, and it's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, they have smart people there who come up with great stuff. Like there has to be some thing that they can do to continue to improve it. I still want them just to make the OS just, it comes back to the animations and the way it operates. Get the same people that helped with Windows Phone 7 back into this.
I liked Windows 8 animations on the desktop where you tapped on a tile and it did that flip and came like full screen. I want that on phone. I was really hoping for that to show up on phone with Windows 10 Mobile's original release. It didn't. Basically, what they did with Windows 10 is they got rid of most of the animations. They went, just to make everything fade. That's not an animation. That's just lazy.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a tough thing with the animations where they have to work but can't slow down. Yeah, like I love fades, right? I think fades look really nice, but visually, in order for a fade to work, like it has to be like a time duration, and so if the fade is longer than what the app is, it's then that's just annoying. So they have to find a balance between that. But it's not like Windows 10 Mobile is super fast, right? I mean, that's the other thing that they need to figure out is sort of like if they can do that through, hey, you have to buy newer hardware, that's fine. But I mean, I miss the days, with Ben Rudolph doing the smoked by Windows phone, where their argument was an efficiency argument. Like you can do more faster on a Windows phone. That was a cool thing. That was like a cool marketing angle. Granted, didn't really solve anything. It didn't help them win the market, but it was fun to be like, you can tweet faster. Remember the Me Tile, the whole idea of like, the hubs for apps. I still would love to see them come up with some kind of deeper integration with that. I mean, let's look at the People app, right? In the What's Going On tab, which is like, why is that still there? Because nothing's going on. Your People hub connects to nothing outside of like Skype and maybe Xbox. And hey, that's the least that they can do. But like, there's no Facebook, there's no Twitter, there's no nothing. And I get the reason why they moved from that in the first place, but figure it out. Do something neat with that. That whole idea of having all your stuff in one place was so cool. I still want the idea of like being able to write, a tweet and set it to Facebook and maybe GroupMe or, something like that. I still like that. And they control so much stuff now, Skype, GroupMe. Like they need to leverage these things a little bit better. And speaking of GroupMe, great app. It gets updated pretty frequently, actually. There's even a beta version. If you're on the fast ring, you get the beta version of it. Embrace GroupMe. Take that team and just be like, we're just going to make you guys like part of like the OS, right? We're going to like really deep integrate GroupMe into it because
that would be amazing.
GroupMe is so good. It's fast. It's reliable. It's delightful to use. I love the little GIFs and stuff like that. Make it more core into the OS. Think of ways to do that and just embrace GroupMe instead of like, kudos to that GroupMe team for just continuing the work that they're doing. And I hope Microsoft continues, but they need to just embrace them. I get there's a conflict with Skype, but like they can do something there.
I've just realized why Microsoft trying to leverage Skype as Microsoft's iMessage competitor. Use GroupMe. That's a much better foundation to do with because it's already based on, it's not using Skype's old protocols and stuff. It's not slow. It's super fast. The irony
is Skype bought GroupMe and Microsoft bought Skype. So.
Right. But GroupMe's better in every way. It's faster. It's lightweight. Right. It just does the job. You could use that. Stick SMS integration into GroupMe, implement that as SMS really on desktop, then you've got Microsoft iMessage. That's it. Do that. That's another free idea for you, Microsoft.
Yeah, so... Well, now we're running a little bit over an hour, but those are just some ideas off my head. So Microsoft, if you're listening, please take that to heart. But I need navigation. Like, they really got to fix that. Like, just hire an A team and just get that going. I honestly don't know how they're going to ever, because that's like one of the number of things people use smartphones for, I would say, is in-car navigation. Also, remember Local Scout? Oh God, it was so good. And it still exists on iOS on Bing. Like, the Bing app still has sort of like a Local Scout feature. That they need more stuff like that. Where, I mean, the problem with those features were we had Local Scout in the US, and there we have enough problems rolling out services worldwide. But I still want them to do original stuff like that, But all the original stuff has been canned. If you look at like Kids Corner, that was a big thing that not many people use it, but the people who did use it loved it. They need to do more stuff like that, because something like Local Scout, which I get, it's kind of in Cortana, but it's not nowhere near the same as it was. Local Scout can exist on Windows 10. Like, it doesn't need to be a mobile thing. I would totally enjoy Local Scout on my PC. I still want the ability to go, I need a good restaurant, and just go browse by category. Oh, here's the best pizza ones. Here's the best steak. Here are movie theaters. I need still something like that. And I feel like Cortana, it does a lot, and then it's still missing a lot of that stuff that I loved about Local Scout and Bing back on the Windows Phone 7 days. So.
Let's quickly jump into our very last story of the day. I wrote an opinion piece this week, which basically said, Microsoft, it's been a year. It's time to start pushing Windows 10 Mobile to eligible Windows Phone 8.1 devices. Because if you didn't know, Windows 10 Mobile is still an optional upgrade for Windows Phone 8.1 users. And the majority of Windows Phone 8.1 users don't care about updates. So everybody running Windows 10 Mobile are either insiders or a very small percentage of normal people who were likely upgraded by their relatives who are insiders. Microsoft didn't do any advertising for Windows 10 Mobile on Windows Phone 8.1. I don't think they ever promoted the Upgrade Advisor app to the front page of the store. Not that many people go into the store to begin with. So think about it. The majority of Windows Phone 8.1 users left who are eligible for Windows 10 Mobile don't even know, either they don't know an update exists or they don't want the update because they have an option not to have it, and the majority of people don't care for updates to begin with. What are you doing? It's been a whole year. Now, I understand why at first they didn't push it, and Windows 10 Mobile was pretty rough a year ago. But today, with the Creators Update, it's great. It's fast. There's basically no major bugs that you'd be worried about anymore. I reckon now is the perfect time for Microsoft to just open the floodgates and push Windows 10 Mobile as a required update, much like Apple would with iOS 11 to iOS 10 users, or Android would if they could, but obviously Android can't because they're terrible at updates. But it's just do it. Why? I don't see why they're still waiting now that the Creators Update is here. Hopefully with the Creators Update, or a little bit after the Creators Update is done and dusted, they decide to open that floodgate and just to encourage developers a bit more. I know the numbers for 8.1 users aren't high anymore.
Oh no, isn't it? It's like, well, no, but the amount of Windows. So that's always been the funny thing. But the Windows Phone users, if you group them all together, like 75% are 8.1.
Yes.
It's only 25% that are 10. So
yes.
That's why when this issue is like, how come more developers aren't releasing apps that are UWP for Windows 10 Mobile? It's like, well, like for instance, WhatsApp. WhatsApp's a perfect example. It doesn't have much need on the desktop, but totally for mobile. So the reason they haven't done a Windows 10 app is because 75% of the users, probably more for WhatsApp, if you think about its demographics and where it's located, it's probably like 80 or 90% are still an 8.1. If they went to a straight Windows 10 version, and they only have so many devs, right? They couldn't just hire another group to work on a Windows 10 version. They would literally just kill themselves on the platform. So it is a big problem. I agree.
And I do think it would encourage developers to sort of reconsider their universal platform, or the universal platform, because once nobody's using Windows Phone 8.1 anymore and everybody's on Windows 10, it further removes that barrier of, I need to target desktop and mobile, because right now developers looking at desktop and going, right, yeah, I could build an app there. There's loads of people on it. Then it's got the mobile counterpart, but why would I want to put the effort in for the mobile bit when there's only 25% of 1% of a market, where the other if I really did need to target the mobile Windows user, you would build a Windows 8.1 app because that's where most of them still are. Get rid of that problem, and then developers have an easier time going, oh, I'm going to build a mobile app. I can just build a Windows 10 mobile app. It's much better. It makes more sense.
Not to jump back to, to what we were talking about before, I was wondering, the people, the My Bar, the people, what is it, the My People bar thing, whatever it is, they need to bring back the me tile somehow with that. And it would be kind of cool where if you could drag and drop stuff to yourself, it'll host it through like OneDrive. So then when I go to a different PC, I could get my documents there, sort of as like a temporary placeholder. It's funny because HP created an app that works with, does it work with Android or no, it works with iOS. It's on their HP laptops where you can just drag and drop photos and then it'll send it right to the phone. And vice versa, right? And you can do it for links, you can do it for documents, you can do it for photos. I'm like, how come this doesn't exist for Windows? And to me, that's like where they're missing a lot of stuff. Even if it's just a Windows 10 mobile feature, like which would seem like it should be, it's like leverage that OneDrive space, man. Give me a repository to like quickly share stuff between my devices.
That'd be a great idea, yeah. But then again, they're also working on a cloud clipboard anyway, so that might actually make sense there as well. Right.
Cool. Well, we once again went over. Sorry again, folks, but hopefully you enjoyed our rants and ravings, and I'm sure a lot of you were agreeing with it. Of course, if you have your ideas and recommendations, I'm sure you do, because last we checked, Windows 10 Mobile has a lot of holes that needs to be filled. Feel free to let us know on Twitter. You can follow me at Daniel_Rubino. That's RUBINO. And Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Let us know. Share those questions with us. And of course, we do record this live on Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Beam and YouTube. And we're going to take your questions now. That won't be a part of the actual recording. So tune in live if you can to join us, and we'll do about a half hour afterwards for that. You can also join us on Thursdays where we do our Microsoft Gaming Libations, which this week was a little rough, but we usually play games. It's me, Zach, and Jez Corden, our Xbox guru, and we just have fun playing the latest games, and we often give away a few codes as well. So make sure you join in on that. You can go to our Beam channel. It's beam.pro/Windows Central, and also see the full schedule for the week there, including our streams on Saturday. But there you go. Appreciate everybody tuning in live, and take care. We'll see you guys around.
Dan, can we quickly pause? Your audio's out of sync again.
Sure.
So this fixes it. If this doesn't fix it, you might want to hang up and call back.
Is it better now?
No. I don't know why the thing does that. Yeah, would you quickly call back?
Okay.
Technical difficulties.